If you have 2 or more children and they fight, then this video is definitely for you, because today I'll walk you through some actionable strategies that you can start using straight away. So let's start with, why do siblings fight in the first place? A lot of sibling fights is actually to do with their age, simply because they still haven't developed their social interaction skills, they don't know how to problem solve, they haven't learned how to regulate their emotions, they're just simply immature. But today I'm going to talk about the type of fights that comes from within the children. The type of sibling fights that makes you think that your children hate each other. So let me explain. When a child is born, they've got this built-in need to be close to their parent. In the end of the day, we provide food, shelter, safety and love. So when another baby comes along, the firstborn may start seeing this newborn as an obstacle in the way to that closeness and proximity to their parent. It all happens on subconscious level, so the child isn't aware of it, but instinctively they want to fight it. And no matter how much siblings love each other, as soon as one of them starts feeling a slight disconnect between them and the parent, and perceive that the other child is having a better deal, this internal competition mode switches on within them against their sibling, and instinctively they want to fight them. So here are some strategies that you can use proactively to try and reduce that urge to compete and fight with a sibling. Because sibling fights, it's a sign of unmet need, and it's exactly what you'll be doing, trying to meet that need. Now, if you have to pick just one strategy, this is the one. This is an absolutely #1 strategy that will help you not only with the sibling situation, but it will also help you to improve cooperation and relationship in general with your child. So what is it? Special time is a scheduled one-on-one time between a parent and each child individually. So to make sure it is effective, this is what you need. At least 10 to 15 minutes a day. Make sure you discuss an agreed time with your child to make sure it works for both of you. You can put it in your family calendar or whatever you do to keep track of your routines, and make sure it becomes part of your routine. So your child and you know exactly when it's happening. It has to have the start and the end of it. So in my family, we use alarm. We tend to do our special times in the mornings because we are early risers. So then once I'm done with one child and my husband is done with the other child, the alarm goes off and then they switch. And we do special time with another child. And it's very clear then when it's the start, when it's the end. You can also give it a name. It could be mummy and Holly time. Whatever you call it, it's absolutely up to you. Get your child involved in coming up with a name. The other important thing is you need to make sure your child chooses an activity. Yes, you do need to discuss some boundaries in advance. It could be no junk food involved or no screens. And most importantly, what you need to make sure special time is effective is be all in. 100% of your presence, attention and participation. And from my own experience, I can definitely tell that the more you do special time, you notice it's not only the child who benefits, it helps you to reconnect with your child and actually makes you feel as a better parent. Do you have your go-to child if you need any help around the house? Absolutely everybody, children and adults, have this internal need of feeling significant and feeling important, that maybe make a difference. So if you find yourself that you tend to pick only one child to help you out, then your other child might start feeling that you perceive them as incapable. So make sure you give some little jobs to both of the children. Especially if you have young children, they are actually really keen to help you out. Make sure you don't force them, it's something you know they can do, but they'll feel important. There's so many age-appropriate things you can ask them to do. So let's use laundry as an example. You can ask one of your children to unload the washing machine, and you can ask the other child to help you out with the pegs. Even with unloading the shopping, you can ask your older child to carry a heavier bag, and you can give something like to even tiny child. Even a 2-year-old can help you carry some bananas into the house. All of your children need to feel significant and important, so make sure you provide them with those opportunities. What do I mean by labels? The smart one, the sporty one, the shy one, the loud one. Do you see what I mean? Now, just imagine you're at work alongside your other colleague and your boss is introducing you to some special visitor. So he comes to you and introduces you by using your name, and then moves on to your colleague, says their name, and then adds, and she's our intelligent one. And just notice how are you feeling inside and what are you thinking in that moment. Because even if you know that your colleague is more experienced in certain areas, when your boss made that label, naturally it makes you feel your boss doesn't value you, your boss thinks the other person is better. You naturally feel that you're worse than your colleague, but you're nowhere near as good as them. And now translate this into your children. When you call one of your children the smart one, how is your other child feeling? They probably naturally feel, well, if he's the smart one, I'm probably not the smartest one. If she's a good girl, I must be the bad girl. And if you notice that uncomfortable feeling in your own body when I use that example, just imagine how it would feel to your child. When their brain isn't fully developed, most of the times they act from their emotional brain, so the feelings will be quite intense. They might develop some hatred towards their sibling and they might want to fight them. So how do we reinforce the good behaviour of one child in front of their sibling without making the other one feel not so good guy? It's actually quite simple. So instead of labeling, you're such a good girl, you're such a smart girl, you focus on the actions. For example, you can say, I can see you've been working hard on your homework, or I have noticed you've practiced every day and now it paid off. So if you notice, these statements are not judgmental and they're not labeling the child. Instead, they're focusing on the actions. These type of phrases are actually really encouraging and reinforcing for both children. And then the sibling will think, I can put some more work into something. I can work hard. Instead of thinking, oh, she's the clever one, there's no way I can match that. I personally think this is probably the hardest strategy because it actually involves you going against your instincts. But hey, positive parenting is hard because we are trying to break those built-in cycles of reactivity. So when one child hurts the other child, or one child is being really mean towards the other child, naturally we want to divide them into the victim and the attacker. We instinctively want to protect the victim and we want to punish the attacker. But let's just think about it. If you punish one child and give your protection and comforting to another child, what is the first one going to be thinking? In their eyes, you're distancing yourself from them and showing favoritism to the other child. Yes, we know it's not reasonable thinking, but that's exactly how they see it. In fact, this is quite possibly what triggered the fight in the first place. So, and what is it going to do to their sibling relationship? It's only going to create more hatred. So then the child that you punished is probably going to try and do it again, but perhaps next time he'll make sure you don't see it. So by repeating that cycle of punishing one, protecting the other, we're actually dividing them further apart and creating much bigger distance. And I think the reason you're here today is because you want to bring your children closer together. So let's try something different. If things got mean and physical between the children, start from yourself. Take a deep breath and remind yourself, you're going in to bring in the calm, not to join the chaos. And you're going in to help both of your children. You probably will need to physically separate them and use words, I won't let you hit, or it's not safe, I'm going to separate you. Because if you come in with a calm but sturdy tone, you will show the children that you have taken control over this situation. And that's exactly what they need, because it's very clear that both of them have lost control of this situation. So they need you to come in. Then when everything is calm, you may want to have a chat with both of them. But what's important is that you're not being judgmental, you're not taking sides, we're not here to be a judge. You're going to be a commentator. You're going to say what you've witnessed, but you're not going to say, you're the one who was right, you're the one who was wrong. We're not going to do that. It may sound like this. I can see you wanted to use some crayons, but your sister was using them at the time, and then address the other child. You were drawing with crayons, and then your brother had them, and that made you cross and you hit. And then you can help them to problem solve. You can ask them both, how do you think we can do things differently next time? and you are simply there to facilitate that. If they're very young, of course, you can give some suggestions and help them, but stay neutral. I really want you to try and see through the sibling fight situation with a different lens. If you notice that it's usually one child who's being mean towards another child or hurting them physically, of course you need to pay attention to the one who's being hurt to make sure they're okay. But your main focus and attention really needs to be on that child who's hurting, who's being mean, and who's attacking. I know that behaviour pushes you away. I know that the last thing you want is to come close to that child and show some love. But when the child shows the behaviour that pushes you away, that's when the child needs you the most. I think the most valuable thing that I've learned in my job is that there's always a reason behind the behaviour. All children are good people inside. Your child is a good person. When someone feels good and content with themselves, they simply don't want to be hurting other people. Just even think of yourself. When are you lashing out the most? When are you triggered the most? Think of last time you yelled at your child. You probably weren't in a good place to start with. That is why you are probably more prone to being triggered. Maybe you have said things you wouldn't usually say. Maybe you've raised your voice and in other circumstances you wouldn't have done that. And it's the same for our children. If they're showing some behaviours that are not okay, that's because they're probably hurting inside and they've got some significant need that hasn't been met. I also want you to know that the child who hurt another child, they don't get pleasure as a result of it. In fact, it's the opposite. They hate themselves. The shame is eating them from inside and they feel like the worst person in the world. Do you think they don't know that they've done something wrong? Of course they do. So the last thing they need is us rubbing it in, us reminding them that they've messed up. Instead, they need reassurance that they're still lovable. They need reassurance that you're still there for them, that you can still see that they are a good person and that you still love them. And no, you're not reinforcing the bad behaviour by showing compassion during your child's trickiest times. You're not communicating that hitting is okay. Yes, you will address those behaviours in a separate situation, in the calm, when your child is actually able to learn some new skills. We need to tell our child that we know that they're a good person, but they're just really struggling right now and that you're there for them. I really want to encourage you to focus on the root of the problem, not just the visible behaviours at the tip of the iceberg. If right now you're noticing that there's a thought creeping up in your mind that, oh no, I've messed up my child. No, you haven't. Remind yourself it's just a thought, but it's not true. You are doing your best. And you should be feeling so proud of yourself that you've got the courage to look for something new and different ways of parenting. I would love to hear how you got on trying some of these strategies, so please do let me know in the comments below. Bye for now.